If Ohio State wins it all, everybody is happy and nobody's happy.
It's the arrival. I came in the league, went straight for the title.
Intercepted! Rod Moore! And Michigan will win the game! Touchdown! Marvin Harrison Jr. Marvelous!
Hail, hail Michigan, the champions of college football.
There's nothing quite like the game.
Michigan versus Ohio State.
This is The Rivalry, proud to be part of the Varsity Network from Learfield and sponsored by Elevated Integrity Construction.
Welcome to another postseason edition of the Rivalry Podcast. I'm Jace. That's JP. Michigan, Ohio State, your garbage-free college football podcast. All about the greatest rivalry in all of sports between Michigan and Ohio State. It's sports talk without the tangents from River Radio Ministries and presented by Elevated Integrity Construction. Both teams coming off, albeit very different postseason wins. Both teams coming off a postseason win here.
Surprising wins
For everybody. Some in more dramatic fashion than others. We'll get to that. But before we do, we're going to spin the wheel route. If you're not watching and subscribed on YouTube, it's at RivalPod on Instagram and Twitter as well. And online, rivalpod.com.
Yes. I can't wait for this one. Biggest fraud in the Final Four.
The biggest fraud in the Final Four. Oh,
you know mine.
I do know yours.
How well do you know me?
I mean, I know yours is Notre Dame.
Oh, easily.
I know yours is Notre Dame.
Easily.
So while I think about my answer to this, you tell me why Notre Dame is a fraud in the Final Four.
Yeah, here's why Notre Dame is a fraud to me. Not saying that they're a bad team, but do they belong in the conversation as one of the top 4 teams in college football? I just don't believe it. They had a relatively easy schedule for the entire year. Granted, they did handle business. They beat the teams they were supposed to beat outside of Northern Illinois, but they didn't have a real impressive victory. They barely scraped by against Louisville about midway through the year.
I don't know. I feel like beating Georgia is a pretty impressive
without their
victory.
starting quarterback.
It's Georgia, my guy.
It's their starting quarterback. It's the leader of the team.
Okay.
And that's
this is your time. This is your time.
Yeah,
you go for it.
Thank you. That is my next point, actually. They had a favorable schedule. They had a favorable schedule in the college football playoffs. They had to play Indiana, who would have been my answer for who the biggest fraud in the entire playoffs is. We've seen what we've needed to see. Kurt Cignetti, we goo-woo you. You don't win. They had a relatively easy playoff so far. Then they have to play a Carson Beck-less Georgia team. Frauds.
Would Georgia have been better with Carson Beck playing that game though? Like, because I don't know if they would have been that much better.
I think they would have won that game.
I don't buy Carson Beck as a great quarterback.
He is not an elite level quarterback. He is better than what they threw out
Stockton,
yesterday.
Yeah. I'm going to be honest. I don't think there's a fraud in the Final Four here. I don't think there's a fraud in the Final Four because before the playoffs started, you had asked, hey, the ESPN's got the little bracket pick'em thing. Not the like specific bowl picks, but like, hey, fill out your bracket for the playoff, whatever. And I told you I had Oregon, which we'll get to that in a moment because wow, but I had Notre Dame in the national championship game.
Bananas.
So like, I'm not saying that that's not, by the way, we'll talk about the semifinal prediction for both games. That's not me betraying my prediction for Penn State Notre Dame necessarily, but I'm saying that from the get-go, I put my foot down and said Notre Dame is a really dangerous team right now. So I don't think they're a fraud. I don't think Penn State's a fraud. I think Penn State has as good a shot as anybody to win this thing. So I don't have a good answer for you there. Ohio State's not a fraud and neither is Texas. So there's not one.
And I think
these are 4 really good football teams.
Penn State is on the verge of being a fraud to me because again, they had another easy time going through. They had to play SMU and then they had to play a Boise State team.
They did get it. There's no doubt Penn State got a favorable draw.
Well, and even in the regular season,
but look at the way they played though. They played
well.
Lights out.
They played well, but I'm looking even at the regular season and I'm going, okay, they didn't get it done at home against Ohio State, who had a depleted offensive line.
That's the one blemish.
They lost to Oregon.
Yeah, my guy, everybody's lost to Oregon.
Not Ohio State.
Yes, you have. You lost to them back in October.
Not when it mattered. Not when it mattered.
Back in October. These are 4 really good football teams. I think we're all just still in shock over the fact that like what happened in that Oregon game. Like not the fact that Ohio State won, but just the way in which it happened. But
yeah, nobody had these first two games on their bingo card going the way they went.
Before we get to that, though, I'm going to pause that because we've talked a lot about Ohio State, and rightly so, on this podcast. Michigan finally got to play their bowl game.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about that first. Again, Rival Pod across social media. Michigan and Alabama was a money grab matchup from the get-go. And we've said this for weeks on the podcast. There's no conceivable reason why a 7-5 Michigan team should have been matched up with a team like Alabama just on the cusp of being in the college football playoff. Made absolutely no sense. We'll continue to maintain that. Michigan was 2 touchdown underdogs in this game. And yet Michigan came out and flat out looked like a better football team than Alabama.
Give your team some more credit too, because here you go going into this game against number 11 ranked Alabama. Nobody in the world outside of that locker room, even yourself included, gave that team a chance
because there was no reason to.
You go in, you don't have Kenneth Grant, you don't have Mason Graham, you don't have Will Johnson, you don't have Khalil Mullings, you don't have Don Edwards, you don't have Colston Loveland. And guess who Alabama trots out? Everybody.
Jalen Milroe, Ryan Williams.
I'm sitting there on my deathbed because I was sick, but I'm like, oh, this will be the thing that brings me joy. Is I get to watch.
This is going to revive me.
I was like, this is going to bring me life. Is getting to watch Jalen Milroe just obliterate Michigan.
You watched Jalen Milroe, all right, and he obliterated his NFL draft chances.
Yes. And then he decided it was still a good idea to declare.
Yeah,
which also showed his poor decision making, which we also saw. And so it was just, I mean, and as much of an Ohio State fan as I am, I'd like to think that I can give credit when credit is due.
Sometimes you can, and I'd like you to do that right now if you would.
I will, absolutely. 3 turnovers for the Michigan defense. They jumped out to an early 16-0 lead. Held the Crimson Tide to 68 rushing yards. Without all of those players, they had Davis Warren go down. I forget what quarter he got injured, but he goes down.
Maybe the third, maybe mid-third, early third.
He goes down, so now you're playing with Alex Zorgi for whatever reason.
We'll get to that. I got some thoughts on that one, man.
And you still got the job done.
Yeah.
And all these people that are giving a bunch of crap to Michigan, saying this is a bad Michigan team, the way that they played against Ohio State, the way they played against Alabama, as a Michigan fan, I'm almost a little bit sick because you saw the potential in those 2 games to still grit out those games. And you look back at games like Illinois, Indiana, where you go, man, there's 2 more wins that we probably should have had.
Yeah.
And you look at that and you go, well, now we're looking at a 10-win season and nobody's saying this Michigan team is bad.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. There's a handful of games in the season. And again, like, let's not kid ourselves. Like this was still not a good Michigan team, but it was certainly an average.
Better than the record.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think there's a couple games in there, and you noted them. The Indiana game, where there's no doubt Michigan had a chance to win that game, and you're sick that you didn't get it done. The Illinois game, again, Illinois was not a good football team. I know that they beat Michigan. I know they beat South Carolina in the bowl game. Illinois is not a great football team. No. Michigan had a chance to win that one. Frankly, even going back to week 5 or 6 against Washington, Michigan had a chance to win that one too. And you know, if Jack Tuttle's not in that game and we kind of stick with Davis Warren, some of the mentality around the Michigan beat has been that they win that too.
And that's a 10-11 win season.
Again, if and but doesn't count in football. But the point being that, I think Michigan was probably a better team than, you know, when they were sitting at 6-5.
And I think that's the narrative shift I'm trying to get at is you see all these people saying, oh, it was a 7-5 Michigan team. They were in a down year, but people that
they were,
and
right
to an extent. But I think as people that watch every single game, that pay attention, that cover this team, regardless of your fan base, like who you root for, because obviously me being a Buckeye, I want to see them lose all the time.
Sure,
but give credit where credit is due. That team is better than a 7-5 record.
Well, and here's the good news for Michigan fans is that you nailed it. Like, look at all the folks who either opted out or declared for the draft. You mentioned the big ones: the Kenneth Grants, the Mason Grahams, Colston, Will Johnson, Kalel, Dono, Josiah Stewart's the name of that. I think you may have left off there too.
I did, yeah.
So Josiah Stewart, Kenneth Grant, Mason Graham on that defensive line, all not playing in this football game, and Michigan still sacked Jalen Milroe 5 times?
Tons of pressure all game
5
long.
times, 3 turnovers. How about Derek Moore, by the way? Like, if you don't watch Michigan football super closely, and you're like, hey, who is this? Like, This kid is coming back next year, and he is going to be a force to be reckoned with. That Michigan also has said that they're going to move Jayshon Barham to the edge position. So you're going to have Barham and Moore on the edge. TJ Guy is going to be part of that as well. Michigan's defense is going to be really, really good next year. And so there's a lot to be happy about. I know that there's going to be Alabama folks who are like, well, those turnovers, they came in the rain and the weather was bad. That's when you got your points.
Those excuses.
That's weird. I didn't know that we were playing two different stadiums where Michigan State, when Michigan had the ball, things were dry and clean and sunshine, and that you guys were just playing in a monsoon. Maybe hold on to the football. I don't know. Because it looked to me like Dominic Zavada was still able to kick the ball pretty well in a monsoon. Looked like Davis Warren threw Davis Warren pause through a touchdown pass in that rain. I don't think that's the issue. So credit Michigan's defense. I was very surprised. I was really impressed. It wouldn't be the end of the 2024 Michigan season though without a couple complaints from me, and I've got two of them.
Get them out.
Got two of them. Number one.
I know one of them. I think
number one is why in the world Sharon Moore's calling a timeout near the end of the first half. Alabama's got the ball. I believe it's it's going to be 3rd and 1. And he calls a timeout to preserve clock. Like he's going to get the ball back and that anemic offense is going to drive the field. All that does is it gives Alabama a chance to go down and score points, which is exactly what they do. So I don't, there's stuff like that I continue to go, this doesn't make sense to me. Like the in-game management piece. We've seen stuff with timeouts. We saw it in the Indiana game. Yep. Let's burn 30 seconds off the clock. More on that in a moment. But that's one. The biggest one for me, though, and this is just...
I think this is the one I know.
It is. I was tweeting about it at RivalPod. Again,
I even got in a Michigan argument on Twitter about this.
I saw this. Why is Alex Orji on the field? And again, this is nothing personal against Alex.
No.
Alex seems like I don't know him personally. Alex seems like a really good dude. Was obviously part of a national championship team. Started for you a handful of times this year. Has potential to be effective in big moments. We saw him break off a big run in the Ohio State game, blah, blah, all this stuff. Alex Orji is in the portal. And again, good for him. I wish him success. I hope he does well wherever he ends up. But he's in the portal. He's not on the team next year. So when Davis Warren goes down, there is zero reason why Jaden Davis is not in that game. This is a bowl game that does not matter. Against a ton of Alabama caliber starters, which Alabama had the year they had. It's still Alabama against SEC level starters. This is a kid that's going to come back next year, is going to compete with Bryce Underwood and Mikey, but he's going to compete with Bryce Underwood and Jaden and
potentially Mikey. On the team. Sure.
Jaden Davis is going to come in and compete with Bryce Underwood, compete with Mikey Keene for the starting job. Even if he doesn't he's on the team next year. You've got quarterback depth. There is no conceivable reason why Alex Orji is playing in that scenario.
100%.
And on top of that, when the first 3 drives go nowhere and he turns the ball over again, what more? what are we in the press conference? I'm just my mind is blown. I've been trying to rack my brain on this. In the press conference, this is what really gets me. Sharon basically was asked hey, what's the thought process? And he said, well, basically, Alex was practicing really well. We felt like with his legs, he gave us the best chance to win. He's in the portal. And did you watch the product on the field?
And you know what, though? Part of that is probably true, but it still doesn't make it the right call.
So it comes, for me, it's stuff like that with Sharon that the jury is obviously still out on. Is he going to be a phenomenal head coach or not? He might. But I think it's impossible to say right now. I think it's impossible to say, oh, he's absolutely the guy. He's beaten Ohio State twice now.
He's had good moments.
He's 2-0 against Ohio State. He's
beat Alabama this year.
Alabama beat Michigan State. I get that. But there's also some just boneheaded stuff like nonsensical running back rotations, right? The same practiced really well thing is what he said about Benjamin Hall earlier in the year, why Hall was getting carries instead of Kalel Mullings. That game where Kalel didn't come in until
almost
near the end of the half. And it was, Dono was practicing well and Ben Hall practiced well. That line's going to get old real fast. I'm already there with it. It's stuff like that, the challenges, the timeouts that I go, I I just don't know. And it's okay to not know right now. But I don't know whether or not Sharon's going to be the guy moving forward. He will be, but like, is he going to be the long-term, he's a young guy in his 30s. Like, is he going to be the coach of the future for the next 10 years? I think it's way too early to tell, but there's little things like that I go, I don't love the way that looks. Unless there is some sort of weird injury or there's, they've had some sort of meeting where he said, hey, I'm going to transfer out, but I'm not going to put my name in the portal yet. Unless there's something weird like that where Sharon's not going to go public with it, this makes absolutely no sense to me. I don't understand why he's in the game.
The Jaden Davis thing is such a...
Can you tell I'm upset about this? Because what worries me, and then I'll let you go. Sorry about that. But like, what worries me is that there's really only three options here. Either one, Jaden Davis is a terrible quarterback. Number two, he's a good quarterback, but you haven't developed him. Or three, Sharon doesn't know what he's talking about. And I don't know which one of those it is, but I promise you, it's not number one. It's not a lack of talent from Jaden Davis. So is he not prepared, or are you just refusing to play him? Either one of those is a really bad scenario, especially with guys like, and I get that Lindsey's going to be the one who's going to work with Bryce Underwood and all that. But it concerns me to see the way you're using a 4-star talent quarterback when you've got guys like that coming in.
The Jaden Davis thing, the whole situation is so strange to me. And honestly, I'm actually very much looking forward to seeing how it plays out, because in my mind, I think he's going to transfer. And I think
I would think so too.
To be honest, only because I think right now you're seeing the door, and he could be a Devin Brown for you guys. That could be a thing where Devin Brown was I don't remember his star, but he was like a 4 or 5 star coming out.
Yeah. And this kid, by the way, like this kid is better than Devin Brown. Like the ceiling,
a lot of quarterbacks are. I might honestly be better.
The ceiling is really high here, but I get your point though. Cause like this is going to be a true quarterback battle between Mikey Keene and Bryce Underwood. Jaden Davis is behind them on the depth chart. You would assume.
On the depth chart again. He was highly recruited. He was brought in and talked up as this is the future Michigan quarterback. Everybody at the spring game was all excited to see him get up and play, and he's given no opportunities throughout the year.
Hey, he had a handoff in the Northwestern game.
Doesn't matter. That's Quinn Ewers at Ohio State.
Scored the one snap is by my count. Jaden Davis has been on the field for Michigan for one snap, and it was a touchdown. I don't know. Maybe we try that.
Good for him. But that situation to me is so interesting. And I understand both sides of the bowl game decision. I would disagree with the one because I'm on your side. I think that was the situation I would have wanted to see him. See, what do you have to lose? It's a meaningless bowl game.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
The way that bowl games are now, it's not like when we were kids growing up where the stars were all playing. I was surprised that Jalen Milroe played, to be honest.
Clearly he needed the reps.
He needs more of them, but he goes in, and to me, that's where you want to see the young guys. But I do understand from a head coaching perspective that there are guys that have been there 4 or 5 years. They want to win the game. They're not out there to grow. There's players that aren't going to go to the league that have put in the work, that earn the right to go out there and compete. And if you genuinely think Alex Orji, which I would probably agree, he does give you the best chance to win, because you look at how the depth chart has played out all year. Jaden Davis has not even been a mention. You went through 3 quarterbacks before, and he still wasn't getting time. So clearly Alex Orji gave you the best chance to win. But like you said, dude's not going to be on the team next year.
Yeah.
So what's more valuable? Getting the win, or potentially getting the win, but getting a young guy experience? And the way I look at it is, you've got to treat it like the NFL now. This is, sure, a college program, but it's a brand. You're building a program. You don't have time for doing people favors. I get that people are there. They're probably not going to go to the league. They're going to end up working a 9 to 5, or maybe going and playing semi-pro football or whatever. And that's fine. This isn't a knock on that at all. But those guys getting reps over guys that aren't going to be on the team, it just logically doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
To me, you throw Jaden Davis out there, you get him valuable experience against a tough SEC defense in a bowl game. You let him get a couple of reps in, and then you go.
Well, and you give, and that gives you, again, you have to, I guess, unless there's some conversation out there, you have to, is like, he is going to be on your team next year. And whether or not he wins the starting job or even wins the backup job, your quarterback room has been the worst in the nation.
Mm-hmm.
You need Bryce Underwood. You need Mikey Keene. You need Jaden. You need all 3 of those guys. So why not let this kid, who has sat on the depth chart behind some of the worst quarterbacks in the nation, on Michigan's probably worst team in at least a decade. Why not let him go out there and start competing for that job now?
And if I'm him, I'm looking at that as almost a little bit of disrespect where I'm going, all right, this is my chance. This bowl game, I'm going to get some reps. And when he saw Davis Warren go down, not that he was rooting for that,
no, but like,
he goes up there and he goes, all right, let's see what I can go out there and do. And he wasn't given a chance. And I know there was a quote from him. I forget who said it, but somebody out there said it where they said they were interviewing him and they talked about the Bryce Underwood stuff. And he said, I'm ready to compete and go out there and compete for it. My guy, they are not paying Bryce Underwood $10 million to be a backup.
But at the same time, like there's like conversation about, what's being typed as kind of the bridge quarterback, right? Is that going to be a guy like Mikey Keene? Well, most likely. So again, and I've even thrown out there, like, if I were, don't bet, this is from a ministry, but if one was to do that with Monopoly money, let's say, to make it more palatable, like my money is still on Bryce Underwood starting in August.
Well, and Moore even came out and said the quarterback battles between Keene and Underwood.
Yeah.
Your head coach came up and said that. So if you're Jayden Davis, you're looking at that going, okay, so I'm third string coming into next season, unless I really drastically improve.
Is this an Aaron Nolan situation, right?
Like, almost. I could see it where Aaron Nolan looks at this and goes, okay, well, Julian Sain right now is QB1.
Tavian St. Clair, highly recruited guy that people are talking about that honestly might even threaten for the starting job next year. Yeah.
Who knows if they go out and land a portal guy?
Yeah. Would be hard to see it.
But XYZ factors in, and he's going, I'm third at best.
It's an unfortunate place that the college game is at, but it's also, I was talking to my brother-in-law. He's a big University of Arkansas fan. Shout out Miles. Congrats on your bowl win, inexplicably. But like, it's one of those things I was telling him over the holidays, it doesn't matter whether or not coaches or fans or even players like that this is where things are. You used to have to sit behind guys and whatever. This is where we're at. And so you don't have to like it. I don't particularly like it, but this is what it is. So you've got to work with it.
You know what surprised me a lot though about this bowl season? Because I mentioned it a little bit ago. You're surprised to see some of these bigger name guys coming out and still playing. Yeah. But seeing like Jalen Milroe come out and play, seeing guys like Jackson Dart come out and still play, seeing Cam Ward go out, even if it was just for a half, seeing Travis Hunter, Shedeur Sanders, whether they played awful or not, like, I think it was good for the game that those big names still played
100%.
Because Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter are going top 3 in the NFL draft.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cam Ward's top 5. Yeah. You're looking at these guys, you have zero reason to play.
Yeah.
And they're coming out and hats off to them. I know they were terrible and got blown out,
but they at least played.
But they played the full game. And I think that to me earns more respect on my end. So I was glad to see Jalen Milroe, even if he played terrible.
I was glad to see him too. I was glad to see Jalen Milroe out there. I wish he'd come back for another one. The last thing I'll say, and then we'll switch off here, is just on a positive note for Michigan. We mentioned the quarterbacks and what happens with Jayden Davis, what doesn't. The quarterback room is just got a lot better though for Michigan, right? Like
went from trash to kind of loaded.
I mean, the Bryce Underwood thing, going to compete with Mikey Keene from Fresno, like that's a veteran guy.
Did you see
either one of those guys going to be? I mean, Bryce Underwood is going to be the guy, but even if it's not quite this year, which I think it will be, I mean, that quarterback room just got real good. And importantly, you've improved the targets for him to throw to. Michigan's currently making a push for guys like Skylar Bell. They already got Donovan McCulley to come in. They've got some freshman guys coming in. Samaj Morgan is still there. Frederick Moore is still there. Hanson's still there. Klein is still there. Like, that offense is getting a lot better next year. It still might not be, Ohio State or Miami levels of offense, but
Ohio State's offense is going to look a lot different.
Justice Haynes being in there, the transfer from Alabama, and this is the positive note I wanted to end on. Jordan Marshall from Michigan. Everybody
from Ohio.
Everybody wanted to see what he looked like in this game. They made the comparison on the broadcast to Blake Corum. They said the coaches have already started saying, yeah, we see some of the stuff we saw from Blake early on in this kid. And you could see it. You could see it in the way he ran. You could see it in the way he found the gaps against a kind of offensive line as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Jordan Marshall, Justice Haynes, that's going to be a duo to be reckoned with. So bright stuff for Michigan. The bargain that I've been preaching has been, if you had told any Michigan fan, you will go 15-0 in 2023. You'll win all the games. You'll beat your rivals. You'll win the national championship. The cost is an 8-win rebuilding year, but you'll still beat Michigan State. You'll still beat Ohio State. You'll even beat Alabama. Smash the subscribe button so quick.
Oh, for sure.
Like not even
no
a second
hesitation.
question, right? So bright stuff on the horizon for Michigan on the way. Hey, before we move on to Ohio State, we want to say thank you to our friends at Elevated Integrity Construction, because maybe you feel a little bit like Kalen DeBoer in Alabama. You know what you're doing isn't working, and you need to transfer in some help, probably in the form of a quarterback who can hang on to the football. Our friends at Elevated Integrity Construction are the portal to a successful project. Aaron and his team have been doing this for a long time. Communicate openly, honestly, leave you wowed at the finished project. We appreciate them. So if you've got a home, church, or business build, go with the folks with integrity in their name at elevatedintegrity.com. The Rivalry also proud to be part of the Varsity Network this season, powered by Learfield, and a must-have for every college football fan. That app is free to download in the App Store, Google Play Store. Live college football games, podcasts just like this one. Search for your school in the Varsity Network app to find tailored content, or search for the Rivalry Podcast. Want to say one last thing here. At rivalpod.com, you can support the Rivalry Podcast. We've got some exclusive merch. We got Michigan and Ohio State t-shirts there. They are absolutely gorgeous. These are my favorite designs we've ever done.
Yeah.
This is our 6th season of this podcast. These are by far my favorite designs we've ever done. You can find those. Click support at rivalpod.com. Your support of the podcast means a lot. It's a small budget podcast, so thank you for doing that. If you don't want a shirt, but you just want to say, hey, appreciate what you guys are doing, click that support tab, rivalpod.com. There's a buy me a coffee option, just a chance to throw a few dollars our way and say thank you. Also important because we've got an Ohio State team making a postseason run.
Let's go. I am so jacked about how this team is playing right now. If you would have said you lose to Michigan, and we've had this conversation before, but now you've got a chance to win a natty, it helps a little bit. It doesn't fix it. And I know people are going to disagree with me and say, if Ohio State ends up winning the natty, that fixes all the Ohio State Michigan losses and it redeems it. It doesn't. It's still going to suck, but it's going to make it a little bit better. I'm going to be happier than if we lose out, and then I have to hear you talk about, well, you didn't get it done and you lost to us.
One of the, if I can interject just real quick there, one of the things that I think is funny about this particular season is that if Ohio State wins it all, everybody is happy and nobody's happy, which is a wild thing. But like, if you guys win it all, everybody's happy. Michigan fans beat Ohio State. Pretty pumped about that. Ohio State fans are pretty happy. Won a national title. Pretty pumped about that. And yet nobody's happy because Michigan's going, well, we beat you, but because of the expanded playoff, you still got in and then you won it. And that frustrates me. I'm irrationally frustrated by that.
Well, and here's the thing, though.
And the Ohio State side, you're going, we won the national title, but once that wears off for a second, you'll go, why in the world can we not beat Michigan?
See,
what is wrong with
that's
Ryan?
That's what's going to be my first question.
College sports are amazing.
If we raise the trophy up, my very first question is going to be, where was this team at the end of November?
Darn straight,
because I'm looking at this, and this is what I think would make a championship this year just a little bit sweeter than any other one. Because the gauntlet that Ohio State will have had to have gone through, there will be no doubt at the end of the year, if Ohio State wins it, that they were not the best team in college football.
Correct.
Because you had to go through Tennessee, you had to go through Oregon, who was undefeated. You have to go through Texas. Then you got to go through Penn State or Notre Dame. And you already had to play Oregon once, barely lost. You beat Penn State. You had to play a top 5. Was it top 5 when we played Indiana?
Yeah, but you just called them the biggest fraud in college football.
But at the time, it was a top 5 win.
I gotcha. And so I'm going to claim the Michigan USC win now, but yes, that's fine.
You can. I would give you that.
No, but you're right. It's been a gauntlet.
And you're looking at the gauntlet and you're going that and the way that they are playing. I mean, I thought OSU would win this game. I had them winning when we did the last episode. I didn't have them winning like this. The question marks that I had were absolutely answered. 8 sacks, 13 tackles for loss. Jack Sawyer, Cody Simon, Tui Moloau combined for 6 of those sacks. They were living in the backfield with Gabriel all night long. Yeah. The thing that I think changed, and I was glad to see Jim Knowles make this change, I felt like Ohio State got pressure the first game. They just couldn't get home. And I think a lot of it was because they allowed Gabriel the chance to run and make plays on the ground. That didn't really happen this time. There was one time, and I was watching these highlights because after a win like that, I stayed up significantly late, rewatching highlight after highlight because I was so jacked. And the thing that I was noticing is they were getting home, and even on the times where he started to escape, immediately there was somebody in silver and scarlet and gray immediately right there meeting him. There was the one play, for example, Cody Simon picked up this sack where I think it was JTT had rushed him out of the side and he started running to the right. And the second he got around the hole, Cody Simon's right there. Yeah. So they did a good job of keeping somebody there to kind of play and act like a spy and prevent that. They did a great job of closing in. I thought Lathan Ransom played a phenomenal game. They were hitting hard. You could hear the crack of the pads. They were playing fierce on offense. The thing that I didn't really have a question mark about, but I was surprised with how well they were able to run the ball.
Yeah, I was. Excuse me. There's a lot in this game that surprised a lot of people, but I would agree with
Jeremiah
you.
Smith getting a touchdown won't surprise me. Him having 100 yards receiving doesn't surprise me. Will Howard being efficient won't surprise me. Yep. I was surprised he didn't have an interception because he's been known for about one a game, and I assumed that would happen at some point. It didn't. The offense was flowing. They were electric. 34 unanswered points before halftime. Here's the biggest thing, though. Oregon had negative 23 rushing yards.
Yep.
The OSU defense was just suffocating.
Yep.
Dylan Gabriel still had a decent game, stat-wise, if you're looking at it. He still had a decent game, but they shut down the run game. They made it a one-dimensional offense, and they limited him. They were in the backfield making him uncomfortable. There were times that you saw him scattering, looking all over the place for somebody open. They weren't there. A great response by the secondary to go out there and make some plays. There were a couple of plays that I felt like in game one they got burnt on, and that was the opposite.
That was the big storyline. Was Denzel Burke looked like trash? Mm-hmm. Davison Igbinosun. I don't even remember. I remember him from the spitting incident. That's about it. Well, that tells you about all you need to know about the secondary. And while the secondary is probably improved from there, I'm still hear this because I'm trying to both be a Michigan fan and objective at the same time here. I don't know that the secondary has really improved a ton. What's improved is the way that defensive line has gotten after quarterbacks.
Well, but it makes the job. I mean, it's hard for any secondary to stay covered if you're not getting pressure on the quarterback.
But the pressure sustained over that game on Dylan Gabriel. Yes, the coverage was good. Like, it was improved. Yeah. But a lot of that was exactly what you're saying is they were getting to pressure on him so quickly that he was having to bounce outside or he was having the pocket collapse around him. He didn't have time to even make the reads, and the reads he was making, the coverage was sufficient. And that's really the flip story on the other side too, right? Will Howard without pressure on him is nearly automatic.
Yeah.
And again, you could say that about a lot of quarterbacks. Oh, well, a lot of quarterbacks are good when they have a clean pocket. Of course they are. Will Howard is exceptional when he has time. And that's the big difference between, as folks will try to parse through, and we'll do this, right? What happened between the Michigan game and the Oregon game? One of the big reasons why Michigan won that game is obviously this isn't crazy, right? Josiah Stewart, Mason Graham, Kenneth Grant had pressure on Will Howard all game. And even when they didn't, they had him seeing ghosts because they kept getting sufficient pressure on him. Oregon couldn't do it.
Tennessee couldn't do it. And so when Will Howard's got time, it helps when nobody covers Jeremiah Smith. It helps when you have,
but it didn't matter. Like
generational talent, Jeremiah Smith,
because it almost didn't matter, right? Like on the second touchdown, like everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, Jeremiah Smith!" I'm like, "There's no one around him for 20 yards, my guy." Yeah. But it didn't matter, even when they had triple coverage on him. The dude's he's a baller. He still went up and made the play.
The second touchdown of the game to Emeka Ibuka was just a dime. I mean, it was just
Will
a
Howard's
beautiful
playing
pass.
well, but he's and that's not to take something away from him, but he's playing well, but he's got plenty of time to do it. And so that's going to be one of the big questions here for Texas is if Texas wants to win this football game, and we can stay on Oregon for a second here, but looking ahead, if Texas wants to win this football game, you are going to have to send pressure and even if you don't get home, you've got to send pressure and make Howard uncomfortable. When you do that, that's where he's prone to just make boneheaded decisions.
Well, and this Oregon game, and even against Tennessee, one of the biggest surprises to me, I mean, we've talked about it a handful of times on this podcast in numerous episodes. The Ohio State offensive line is missing their two best players. Simple as that.
And they've been up to the task so far in ways that are fairly surprising.
And Tennessee, they were able to run the ball well. Oregon, they were able to run the ball well. Judkins and Henderson both had phenomenal games. It was like every time they touched it, I saw the wide gap and I thought, well, there's the first down. And it was just almost automatic. It was like you knew, watching that game in the first half, you knew every time Ohio State got the ball on offense, they were scoring.
Yeah. Well, you took their soul so early, like you could see the demoralization, which, let's be honest, does help you to do literally whatever you want to do.
But I mean, the first touchdown by Jeremiah Smith was just a heck of a play. Then the throw to Emeka Ibuka was just phenomenal. Then you rip off, I think, was it Travion that had the next one? That was a 60?
It was Smith again, I think.
Smith again, yeah. But then
Travion we all lost track, okay?
There were so many going around.
That was the most disappointing Rose Bowl that I have ever seen.
I was not disappointed whatsoever.
You go ahead.
I just have one final thing. Here's where I knew, because football fans, sports fans will all relate to this. It is 34-0, almost halftime, and I'm pacing around my room. And my wife
texted me.
My wife Laurel comes in and she goes, "They're up 34-0. They're going to win." And I looked at her and I said, "Don't say that." And I said, I'm a Browns fan. And I am a realistic sports fan. No lead is safe until the clock hits 0. And I laid out every scenario. I said, if they score here and get the 2 points, then it's 34-8. They get the ball coming out of halftime. If they score that opening drive and they get 2 points again, now it's 34-16. That's a ball game. And in my mind,
you're still down by 3 scores. My God.
But you have a lot of time.
No,
and
I do the same thing. I
didn't feel safe even being up 34-0. But I knew that the game was over with about 2 minutes and 15 seconds left in the third quarter.
That's the point where you knew.
That specific moment. Oregon had the ball.
Absurd.
They were down 41-15. They were at their own 41-yard line. You're down 41-15. You have not stopped Ohio State's offense whatsoever. And Dan Lanning decides to punt on a 4th and 4 from their own 41. At that moment, I thought,
game.
Wave the white flag.
Yep.
And I didn't think I would see it. In my mind, that was a situation where if you are past the 40-yard line either way, it's 4 down territory.
What's it matter?
You're down 41-15. Yeah. It is almost the fourth quarter, my guy. You've not stopped their offense. They have a man named Jeremiah Smith that is torching you. They have gotten home consistently. I didn't understand that decision making. And the second they did that, I walked in and I went right to Laurel and I said, ball game. And she's like, well, they still have a quarter to play. And I said,
see, this is why you're confusing, because she's like, she's sitting there and she's going, okay, like it doesn't make sense to me, but okay, I can accept that until the clock hits 0, he's going to be stressed. And the next thing you know, you're going, it's over. And what is it? That's not on her. That's a you problem. That's a you problem.
Hi, I'm the problem. It's me.
One of the things that I thought, and then we'll move to Texas here, but one of the things that I thought was real interesting about the way Oregon approached this game, is it felt to me, and again, I have not run through full replays and X's and O's. There are other podcasts for that. That's fine. But watching it live, I felt like I was watching Ohio State's game plan against Michigan being executed by Oregon. Because it felt like they were stubbornly, and again, remember, like they're missing their top back.
Yeah, he went down.
I don't think it would have mattered, but like that's still significant. Missing their top back, and they kept, especially on early downs, they kept trying to run the ball on that Ohio State defense. It was not working. Mm-hmm. And so it seemed like most of their drives here were going, run the ball into a brick wall, obvious passing down. Like, and occasionally they'd convert a 3rd and 17 or whatever, but like the game plan didn't make sense, because I'm looking at it going, for all the accolades we've given Ohio State's defensive line, we've given the secondary, like for all that, you have Dylan Gabriel, you have offensive weapons. I know they were missing a guy or two. Like I get that. You have offensive weapons. Why would you not use them? Like it felt like it wasn't as bad, obviously, but like it felt like the same mentality where it's like, what am I watching here? Mm-hmm. Why is this your game plan? Because it's not. We're all screaming at the TV. By all, I mean me wearing my Michigan stuff, going, it's not working. I've seen this game.
See,
It's wild to me that you had a month to prepare for this Rose Bowl, and that's what Dan Lanning trotted out. Maybe they could have tried 12 guys on the field every play. I don't know. Maybe that would have helped.
You already kind of brought this up, and then I want to talk up another point that I've seen people say.
That's right. Listen, man, this was a massive game, and Texas is going to be huge. We've got all day.
The one thing that is the only gripe that I have on this whole game, and it's the only time in that entire game I genuinely thought, okay, this is going to be a nail biter, and it was coming out of halftime. I thought this first possession with Oregon's going to be huge, and we go out. We have a phenomenal first little bit. It's like 3rd and 22 or 3rd and 21, deep in Oregon's territory. And I thought, we're going to stop them on this drive. Beautiful. That's exactly what you wanted. And then they gave up like 20 yards, and then they converted the 4th down and won. Those are the moments. And then they inevitably go down and score a touchdown. And after that, in my mind, I was going through the scenario. And that's another thing that I question Dan Lanning on, is he decides to kick the extra point instead of going for 2.
I feel like at that point it's so early that I don't know. I guess you just take the points and go, hey, we've got enough time. I felt like you
were already fighting for your life. You chose to go for 2 after your first touchdown. Why are you all of a sudden deciding an extra point is worth
fair.
it?
Yeah.
So there were just a couple of head scratchers.
Clearly mattered.
It did. It did not. The other thing that I wanted to talk about a little bit is I've seen a lot of people complaining about all the bye teams lost and how it's an issue.
Yeah, I'm curious what you think about that too.
I think it's hot garbage.
Really?
Okay. And here's why. The teams that had the bye, I don't feel like were the better teams regardless. I don't think Arizona State was a better team than Texas.
I'd agree with that.
I don't think Boise State was a better team than Penn State.
Would agree.
I don't think a healthy Georgia team I think that's a better team than Notre Dame, if I'm being honest. A fully healthy Georgia team. And
Georgia got the rest though.
No, but I'm saying like I think if Georgia was healthy, they would have won that. So people saying like because they lost.
I gotcha.
I think Carson Beck plays. I think they win. And so I'm looking at this Oregon game and I'm going, that's the only game that I could have really seen people genuinely believing was a coin flip. And so I just don't buy it. I just don't buy that a bye week matters that much. I know that it can get you off your rhythm a little bit, but if you're a good team, you're a good team. If you prepare well, you prepare well. I get that it matters a little bit. Do I think it matters enough to where it determined the outcome of the entire game?
No.
And I think that's the thing that was frustrating is it was almost trying to discredit the teams that actually won.
I don't think it's trying to discredit the teams that won, but I do think that it brings up the rest versus rust conversation, right? Like even during the season, like Ohio State coming out against Nebraska after their bye week and looking like absolute trash.
I think to me, the argument needs to be focused more on reseeding and how that looks, because
no doubt.
Here's the thing that I think genuinely makes sense. And I think this playoff has proved it. The Ohio State side of the bracket's the toughest bracket, and it's not even close.
Yeah.
I don't think any other team has had a remotely tough. They've had tough games like Arizona State, Texas turned out to be a better game than people thought, but none of those matchups on paper were really worth anything.
That's the side of the bracket that everybody rightly, I think, assumes is going to win the whole thing. I mean, we said Oregon, Ohio State was going to determine the whole thing.
And here's the thing that I think, and I heard a lot of Oregon people complaining about this, and I think they're valid. They go undefeated, they win the Big Ten championship, and they're rewarded by having to play Ohio State at a neutral site.
Yeah.
To me, and I know people will probably disagree with this, I think a simple fix is you got to figure out reseeding anyways.
Correct.
But I think a simple fix that helps reward those teams is the first 2 rounds, the home team is the higher seed. Get rid of quarterfinal game being a Sugar Bowl or whatever else.
You just put it on campus?
I'm putting it on campus so that Oregon, you went undefeated, you won your Big Ten championship, you get to host a home playoff game. The first round of the tournament, the higher seed gets to host. The second round, that opposing team, the lower seed, has to go in and beat you at your place. Then the semis and the championship can be the bigger name bowl games, the Rose Bowls, the whatever else.
Yeah. I'm not opposed to that either.
To me, if you reseed, you figure out, I don't know how you fix that issue, but that at least gives you an incentive. And honestly, it's just a cool thing for the fans. Having gone to see the first playoff game ever at night at the Shoe, the stadium was electric. It was something that I think the fan base deserves. If your team goes undefeated and wins a Big Ten championship or a conference championship, you deserve to have your fans be there and host a home game.
Let's make a shift and let's talk Texas.
Okay.
So we're recording this on Friday morning. So, I mean, we just got the semifinals all finished up last night. So like, this is all still pretty fresh. Texas obviously had a bit of a dogfight there at the end with Arizona State, controlled the game until the final 10 minutes, which apparently are important.
But we're impressive in doing it.
It depends on how you want to define impressive, I guess. I mean, they were in full control of that game until they weren't, which is an issue, right? Like, this has been an issue for Michigan this year. It's been an issue for Ohio State. It's been an issue for Texas, right? Texas's the strength of Texas, I think, is going to be on the defense. Mm-hmm. And we mentioned, like, if Will Howard has time and a clean pocket, he is going to pick you apart. You are going to have to get pressure on Will Howard, something that Tennessee couldn't do. And I kind of chalked it up to, I thought they would, but it's Tennessee and who knows. The fact that Oregon couldn't do it is concerning to me if I'm a Texas fan. The fact that Oregon couldn't get pressure on Will Howard makes me pause and go, we might be in trouble. Texas's defense is a strength. They're going to have to play well. The offense is kind of a question mark for me because Texas's offense seems like they can be really hot or really cold. Mm-hmm. Quinn Ewers seems like he can be really hot or really cold. Which version of Texas shows up in this game makes a big difference. And you could say that about Ohio State as well. If the version of Ohio State that's been trotted out the last couple playoff games shows up, Ohio State's in really good shape.
Yeah.
If they don't, and that's part of it too, right? Like, everybody keeps saying things like, well, this version of Ohio State is unbeatable. I mean, yeah, but that's why you play football, to see which version of your team shows like that. It has driven me nuts. The number of it was like, this Ohio State team will win the whole thing. Yeah, probably, but will they continue to show up? And what if what if this version of Texas shows up? Then what? It's stupid. It's like, if we play really good and beat the other team, we will win.
If we play a near perfect ball game, nobody can beat us. Water is wet.
My only request for Texas is, hey, maybe stop spotting Ohio State anywhere from 3 to 5 touchdowns before you score points. I don't request a lot.
See, this is
but
the
maybe
thing.
Start playing when they start playing.
Because I feel like, you hit the nail on the head. The media, to me, is automatically putting Ohio State almost in the championship.
And I get it, though. I get it.
I get based off how they've played these first 2 rounds. But Texas is not a bad team. They're just not. They've got a great defense. They've got one of the best running back duos in the nation. I think Quintravion Wisner has over 1,000 yards. Jaden Blue, he's got like 700 or 800 or something like that. They are a special dynamic duo. The thing I'm actually really interested in, Jeremiah Smith going up against Jim Thorpe Award winner Jahdae Barron.
Yeah.
Like, to me, that's going to be huge. If he can lock down Jeremiah Smith, which you haven't really seen done when Jeremiah Smith's actually been targeted.
Yeah,
you haven't really seen it.
But that's part of it, though, right? Like, that goes back to the pressure thing, is why was Michigan so successful against Jeremiah Smith? 5 catches, 35 yards. He had the touchdown. Mm. Why did Michigan limit him to 30? He had more than 35 yards in the first 50 seconds of that game.
The first play.
Why? Because 1, Michigan's secondary was better than people gave it credit for. And 2, Michigan got pressure. So, like, those things are all going to go to. If you are giving Will Howard time, you ain't covering Jeremiah Smith. Okay, like, nobody's doing that.
The Ohio State offense is too dynamic. I want to say it was Stephen A. Smith, which I never really paid attention to.
Do we have to quote him on this podcast?
We don't, but we're gonna. Well, potentially. I think it was him.
Fast forward through the next 15 seconds.
It might not actually have been him, but he was breaking this game down, and he said, "I don't want to root for Ohio State. I don't want them to win." But here's why I think that they're going to blow them out. And he said,
"Wow."
He said Texas struggled against Cam Scabadoo in Arizona State, couldn't stop him, and he was the only guy they really had. Ohio State's got 4 or 5 of those guys.
See,
I think
Stephen,
I get what he's saying.
That's apples and oranges, though.
I agree to an extent. I think it's a different style of play. I think they struggled with Cam because he was a bigger body, a grittier running back that just was tough to take down. Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins don't strike me as super difficult. They're shifty, but they're not difficult once you make contact.
Yeah.
Cam is absolutely a beast.
Yeah, the strength of Ohio State is not going to be. It hasn't been all year. The backs are fine. Let's be real honest about it. They've been good. They're good backs. The Henderson Judkins dynamic duo thing was overhyped in hindsight.
To an extent.
In hindsight. I'm not saying they're bad players. I'm not even saying that they're not maybe the best duo in the country, because it's hard to have two phenomenal backs splitting time the way that Dono and Blake did last year. Mm-hmm. But I'm saying like these are like Heisman caliber. No, stop.
See, and I
that's not going to be the strength. The strength is going to be dishing the ball out quickly on the perimeter to a Judkins or to Jeremiah.
Can Ohio State run the ball? This game to me comes down to one major thing, but I think obviously the run game is going to be a huge part of that.
Yeah.
Is Ohio State is the offensive line going to be able to protect Will Howard? Are they going to be able to run the ball even decent?
Yeah.
But to me, I look at this across the board and I go, okay, defenses pretty even, evenly matched.
I think so.
Running back room pretty comparable. Wide receivers, Jeremiah Smith's the best receiver, but Texas ain't no slouch.
Yeah.
They got good guys on that side of the ball too. So I'm looking at this and I'm going across the board. It's pretty neck and neck, especially offensive line. I'm looking at how Ohio State's offensive line has performed, and I'm going off how they've been performing pretty on par. So to me, it comes down to Will Howard, Quinn Ewers.
And that's where like Will Howard in the playoff has been phenomenal. And it goes back to, he's got time. He's not a bad quarterback. He's not Heisman caliber, but he's in the last 2 games, he's played like it.
And but he's had good stats all season long.
But he's
he's been an underappreciated quarterback.
I think nationally, as from a national media perspective, he's been underappreciated. I think we've given him his due without going over.
But you and I are different in the sense of it is our job to kind of cover this guy. Yeah. So like we know it's the same reason I can give credit to a Michigan player, because our eyes are on him a lot more than some other people.
Quinn Ewers is a question mark for me.
Same.
Like if good Quinn, this kind of goes back to the stupid stuff about like, well, if this version, okay, fine. If this version of Ohio State, this version of Quinn Ewers shows up, Texas wins this game. I'm just not confident in Quinn. And I think they'd have a better chance if Arch Manning was out there.
And I've seen people speculating that that's what they should do. They should trot him out there as the starter.
Because he's got the run ability.
You're going to get a heck of a rematch next season at the Shoe, because these teams open the season together.
August 30th, I believe.
Hopefully we will be there.
We will absolutely be there.
And hopefully we see the same result, a Buckeye win. I think this game comes down to the quarterback play, and I think you hit the nail on the head. Quinn Ewers has been a little bit hit or miss to me. Will Howard has been fine. Like, he has been exactly what I dreamed he would be coming into this season. I think outside of the Michigan game and probably one other game that I can't even think of off the top of my head, almost every game that I've seen him play.
The Penn State game was not good.
But it wasn't bad. I didn't think it was bad.
Either way, you're in the position now and he's playing his best football.
I think that's my case is right now, who do I think has the better momentum going forward? It's got to be Will Howard without a doubt. The thing that I also like about this is Ohio State seems to be finding, and this is just something you got to do when you're a competitor.
Yeah.
You got to find that chip that you can hang on to. What gives you that edge mentally?
I'm glad you brought this up.
And you're talking about the first game coming back from Tennessee, and you heard all the trash talk Tennessee fans were saying of how it's Neyland North and we're going to fill the shoe and blah, 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 and all this stuff. And I think Ohio State heard a lot of the noise after that Michigan game, and I thought they came in and they played ticked off and motivated. That was the first chip. Then they go in and they have to play Oregon, and they all had that chip. Denzel Burke had a chip to play a better game. Jack Sawyer and JTT had a chance to come out and redeem themselves. The Ohio State, Will Howard specifically, with how that first game ended, had a chip to go out there and prove that they were the better team than Oregon, and they went out and performed it. And then after the game, Will Howard's being interviewed, and he's talking about how he's excited for the matchup against Texas. And he says, you know, when I was in the Big 12, when I was at Kansas State, Texas was the only team I could never beat. And so you're telling me I got a Will Howard that's motivated to come in there and play, and he's got a heck of a lot of weapons, and this team is one game away from making a national championship game. I love that. I love that they're coming into that with an edge, and it's going to be basically a home game for the Texas Longhorns.
In theory, but I mean, listen, Michigan and Ohio State fans both travel phenomenally well.
And there will be a good amount of Ohio State fans. But you're right,
it's in their backyard.
It's in their backyard.
What do you have? Pull the trigger, man.
Ohio State 34, Texas 24.
Okay. one of the things that I want to mention, so I'm glad you brought the chip, the part about the chip on the shoulder, the Chip Kelly. Two things for that. One, I want to make sure, one of the things that I feel like it's my job as the Michigan side of this podcast to do is when the cameras are showing like Ryan Day with a big smile on his face and Jack Sawyer and Will Howard with, roses in their teeth and confetti and all that stuff, is to make sure that that's not the image that everyone is left with. My job as the Michigan side is to remind everyone of the image of Jack Sawyer, like screaming at a staffer about how they're not going to plant a flag again, man. While Ryan Day is like staring past him at the ghost that Will Howard was seeing all game. That's the image I'd like everyone to remember.
Well, I'd like to show you.
That's why it's very important for me that Ohio State does not win a national title.
Yeah, I need them to win so that I can show the picture of Jack Sawyer hoisting the trophy because.
Yeah, so like my job right now is to remind everyone, we have not forgot in like the last month, we've not forgotten Jack. And Jack, every time I see him, becomes a more unlikable player, and it's fine.
See, and we talked about this prior to recording. I want Ohio State to win, not only because I'm a huge Buckeye fan, but because I want you to have to sit there and watch a Jack Sawyer national championship press conference.
I wouldn't do it.
Even as a Buckeye fan, I know that he's just going to say so much stuff that's just going to get under your skin. Well, and I cannot wait.
And here's part of it. And I promise I'm building to a prediction here. But like one of the things that I've also just noticed, as we're kind of in that, one of the things that I've noticed though is like there's a difference to me too between players wanting to play for a coach, like being motivated for a guy and be like, hey, I love playing for him. And I believe that these players love playing for Ryan Day. I do. There's also though an element though, and I'm talking specifically coming out of the Michigan game and heading into the Michigan game and coming out of it, where coaches are supposed to rise above the ruckus, rise above the fray, take the pressure on themselves, but not distribute it to their players, right? That's what coaches are supposed to do. And even heading into the Michigan game, and there's an element to where I get it, but there's an element here that's just weird to me, where the way that guys like Sawyer and Howard were talking about, I just want to win this for Ryan Day. I just want to win this for Coach Day. He's been through so much. His family's been through so. We got to win it for him. And then coming out of the Michigan game, just like I just feel bad. Like the focus was all on how much pressure and how disappointed they were for the coach.
Mm-hmm.
There's a line there for me between I want to win because I love playing for this guy, and I see the pressure he's under, and I just am so sad we disappointed him. That's weird to me. Like that's a weird thing for me that a coach should be able to rise above. Like even after the Rose Bowl game, Brandon Innes is going live on Instagram going, best coach in America, man. Stop talking bad about my dog. And Ryan Day is in the photo. I'm like, my guy, like where was this energy? Like 2 games ago. Like it's just this weird thing where it's like they feel the pressure, not for themselves. Like I think they do, but it's the pressure. They feel the pressure that's on their coach. That to me shouldn't be happening. There should be a barrier there where it's like you feel the pressure because of like what you want your legacy to be.
I guess
not
it depends on
about
how
what your coach is going through.
I guess it depends on how you focus that energy, because you're right. If you love playing for a guy, it's like a friend. It's like a family member. If you see somebody talking bad about a brother or a sibling or one of your best friends, you're going to want to stick up for them. You're going to want to fight the battle with them. And so I don't think it's a weird thing at all. I think it actually gives me more confidence going forward.
But I think though, like you saw, I get it. But I'm just saying, like, there's just something there.
I get what you're saying.
Where like, and I think I think some of that pans out in the Michigan game. There was no doubt that they knew not just the pressure that they were under, but there was that added pressure of what Coach Day has been through in losing 3 straight. There's that, we talk about the mental block around Michigan and all that stuff. It's like, I think that's part of it is they felt not just their own pressure of, Jack Sawyer, the pressure of now going 0-4 against Michigan, but also going, but we couldn't get done for him. Like there's added pressure that doesn't need to be there. It's just, it's strange to me. And it's wild to me how much the narrative has shifted in a month. But again, that's what winning will do for you.
Well, and to me, it's just all about the focus of things, because I mean, Jack Sawyer was not the reason Ohio State lost to Michigan.
No, not at all. Not at all.
He played well. And I think having that motivation to go out there and help prove the narrative wrong about what the national media and what other people, even in Columbus, think about Ryan Day, wanting to go out there and perform well for your coach doesn't rub me the wrong way at all. I think to me, it's just about how you go about doing it. If you're going out there and you're using it as a motivator, then it's fine. It gets cringe when you go out there and you're constantly losing.
And I guess that's the difference between the Michigan and the playoff is it became a hindrance in the Michigan game. And now they feel like they're playing loose and they're all this stuff. So again, I said I was building to prediction. The interesting thing about going into Texas is it feels like that, you talked about players having chip on their shoulder. Absolutely. But it feels like the narrative has shifted where it was Ohio State doesn't stand a chance or not doesn't stand a chance. Ohio State and Tennessee, like it's going to be a mental block. They're not going to be able to get it done. They get it done in pretty convincing fashion. The Oregon game. Yeah. Okay. And the way that they beat Oregon now, instead of Ohio State kind of being like this weird underdog, now it feels like the narrative's kind of flipped and Ohio State's not only the betting favorite, but is like, oh yeah, they might crush Texas. It's just, this is what Nick Saban would call rat poison. And if you're Ohio State, you had better be so focused and so careful. And this is even where, and I know you and I differ sometimes on the cockiness of coaches, the cockiness of players.
I'm going to agree with you here.
This is going to be Jeremiah Smith is the first name I'm going to circle here. Where, and to be fair, like he backed it up.
Okay, I'm going to disagree with you on this part.
But going into the Oregon game saying, hey, I'm just telling you, if you play man, we're taking a shot. He was right.
They did. Many.
But that little bit, that confidence switch though is a fine line because even afterwards when Reese Davis says, hey, can anybody cover you? No.
Love it. Sign me up.
Rat poison.
Sign me up. But
you head into this Texas game as suddenly a favorite and everyone's telling you how great you are again. And this is what doomed you in the Michigan game. Part of it is what doomed you in the Michigan game. How many times has Ryan Day said after the fact, we just never thought this would happen. I never thought this would happen. This wasn't possible to How many times has he said like, this never crossed our minds that we'd lose this game? That's a bad place to be. Well, that's not a good place to be.
I agree with you in part of that. I think I loved what Jeremiah Smith said. I saw both of those quotes and it was like injected straight into my veins. I'm ready to go.
And I know we differ on that.
And I know the second you heard that, you thought of me and thought,
I did. I knew you were excited about that.
The second that he was on stage and they said, can anybody guard you? And I paid attention to the dude in the back that was just going, nope. And then he goes, no. Amazing.
That
poster it.
If you back it up.
Which he has. And I think that's fine. But I agree with you in the sense of you can say all that. You have to continually back it up. You have to stay hungry.
Yeah.
This team can't be complacent because they've blown two teams out that are still good teams.
Yeah.
You can't all of a sudden go, we're the best team. We got to
You have yet to accomplish your goals. And so you keep that confidence. If you're a Buckeye, keep that confidence. But I'm just saying, the rat poison phrase is the first thing that ran through my head when I started to see a little bit of talking from Ohio State was rat poison. And if you're a Buckeye, you better be focused.
It's a thin line, a super thin line.
So all that being said, I've got Texas by like.
You do not have Texas.
I wrote down Texas. That's not who I have in this game. Excuse me for a second. I have Ohio State by like 3 scores.
You have them by 3 scores. What's your score? Like, give me the actual numbers.
38-20.
I would love that.
For all the legitimate concern about the rat poison and staying focused and all this other stuff, for as good as Texas's defense has been, I just right now it is hard for me to pick against Ohio State based on what I've seen.
I know you picked Oregon this past game. What did you pick? Did you pick Tennessee to beat them?
This is a little bit of the strategy too. I picked Ohio State to beat Michigan. Obviously, that didn't happen. Picked Tennessee to beat Ohio State. Didn't happen. Picked Oregon to beat Ohio State. Didn't happen. So we're just gonna.
I respect.
We're just gonna see. We're just gonna see a bold Ohio State by 18 prediction in this football game, in the hope that Texas finds a way to pull this one out.
I don't want to ever see you do that again.
I don't feel good. Horns down is so much more enjoyable, but okay, hook 'em, I guess.
Gross.
You got anything else on this game here?
Shout out to our good friend Juan Carlos,
JC, dude,
big Texas fan,
my dude.
I hope they lose. I hope you have a really bad time on the 10th. That's all I'll say.
We'll see you in Columbus in August. Last thing, give me a quick pick here. Other college football playoff semifinal, Penn State, Notre Dame.
You know who I'm picking. Penn State.
Why?
Many reasons.
10 seconds.
Yeah, 10 seconds. Drew Aller.
Okay.
I think he's the difference maker. I trust him more than I trust Riley Leonard.
For as much as I talked about Notre Dame, predicting him in, I'm changing my pick because I think Penn State too. And Tyler Warren is the reason.
Also,
I think I think of any team left in the field, if there's anybody that's going to beat Ohio State, and I'm not sure there is, I think Penn State's got the best chance.
Penn State's got the better defense. They have the better running backs. They have the better quarterback. They have the better tight end.
I just think
better coach, which I never thought I would say.
They look. I mean, yeah, I know Ohio State beat them in Happy Valley. Look at how that game played out. Look at how close that game was. Look at the the fine margins on either side there. Penn State's playing really good football right now. I don't think Notre Dame has a chance to beat Ohio State. I don't think Texas has a chance. I think Penn State would. Also, an all Big Ten national championship. It just means more sometimes.
Frames Janklin versus Ryan Day. Oh, give the people what they want.
You said this earlier. The realization that I'm going to have to cheer for either Marcus Freeman or Frames Janklin.
You like Marcus Freeman though?
I guess. I don't really like Notre Dame,
which kind of makes you an Ohio State guy because he was a former Ohio State player.
If I have to cheer for Frames Janklin in a national championship game, I will do it, but I will not be happy about it. Be sure to subscribe at Rival Pod. And again, if Ohio State gets through Texas and heads to Atlanta for a national championship, JP is going to be there, and you can help him get there when you click support at rivalpod.com. Thanks for listening. Thanks for subscribing.
OH.
The Rivalry is a production of River Radio Ministries. Want live updates from the show? Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at RivalPod. To learn how to support the show, shop our merch, and read our blogs, visit rivalpod.com. Make sure to follow us wherever you're listening now. And if you like what you're hearing, tell a friend so they can listen too.